We're live. Hello. Hi, everybody. I have returned. I'm back from vacationing in the wilderness. Back on the art stream. My camera seems to be behaving. That's good. It was not while I was setting up, so I was getting a little concerned, but we seem to be good now. We're good. We're good. All right, so we're returning to this page we worked on for a couple of previous live streams. This is from my webcomic Age of Night. This is chapter 27, page 14. Previously on the stream, we drew the whole thing. We got it all lettered. I think I finished like the outline of 1 or 2 word balloons off stream because I was very close to being done with them. And now we are going to start working on inking. I'm going to be inking the backgrounds first because that's just kind of how I like to do, using my Hunt 107 pen nib and my big old wooden Tachikawa nib holder because I like it a lot. Hey, Spud, thanks so much for joining me. And I'm also going to be using my Royal Talons ink, which I already opened, so I'm not going to show it to you because I don't want to spill ink all over my page. That would be bad. But we'll go ahead and start. Oh, I do have an unopened bottle here. That's right. It looks like this. This one's kind of got some ink stains on it, but that's what it looks like. That's the one I like to use with pens. So I'm going to go ahead and start working on some of those background elements. And also like I also do like little non-organic details a lot of times too. Just a few different things I do the pen nib for before I do the rest of it in brush. So a lot of times it'll be like buckled or like pieces of jewelry or other little fine details like that. What do we have back here? We've got some grass. So we're looking down at this scene. So we're looking at the grass behind them. And the other thing I'm going to do at this pass is, because we've got Drake in this scene and he is a black cat, so trying to distinguish the different parts of his body so he's not just a black blob, I will do some of that in the pen nib as well. Hope everyone is doing well. It feels like it's been forever. If you miss a once weekly thing for just 1 week, it feels like a very long time since you've done it again. I had a lovely little lake vacation with my family. It was a very good time. Some of this grass all around Drake. He's casting a little bit of a shadow on it too. Yeah, but a very busy couple of weeks with vacationing with the family, and then I had an art show in Massachusetts this past weekend, and since we were already down in Massachusetts, we're like, hey, let's stay in Boston for an extra night and go to a concert, and now I'm like, I feel like I haven't actually been home and gotten anything done in ages. Kind of one of those things, just where everything just lined up. I was very busy for a bit. Hello, someone saying. Thanks so much for joining me. Happy to be back this week. get some more of the details of Drake. Hey, Hungry, thanks so much for joining me. I'm so happy to see everybody this week. So we're going to pick out some of these details on Drake's face so that when I go and fill in the rest of his body with just pure black, you can actually see his features. He's not just going to be a blob. So we want to preserve that nice expression he has going on there. All right, now more grass. Time to add more grass up here. So after a couple of very busy weeks, I thankfully have a pretty relatively calm schedule for a couple of weeks here. Everybody's going to be going back to school soon. So, I mean, like, as calm as a family ever gets, honestly. Just like the normal amount of chaos and disruption. And then I don't have another event until Granite Con, which is in a little less than a month. That's in mid-September in Manchester, New Hampshire. And I'm looking forward to that. Granite Con's always a good show. And it's going to be 3 days this year, which is pretty cool. All right, we're going to add a little bit to this. Do you have a large scanner that you use to move your pages to a computer, or do you photograph them? I do have a large scanner. So large scanners have become like increasingly difficult to find. They've never really been cheap, but I had just a plain old 11 by 17 flatbed scanner, and it was just a scanner for like the longest time. And then it was old enough that it was no longer being supported with updates. And so it started to act very squirrely. And I was like, it's only a matter of time before this thing is completely bricked. So I ended up getting like an all-in-one. It's one of the like Epson all-in-ones that has like a scanner, copier, printer, whatever. You could get it to do a million things. But the only thing I need it for is the scanner. Because it's one of the few options that has an 11 by 17 scanner anymore. They're like the ones that are just a flatbed pretty much don't exist anymore. Or you can get like really, really, really high-end ones for like thousands of dollars, which I'm not going to do because the Epson scanner from the all-in-one for a couple $100 is perfectly fine. Photographing artwork is really, really tricky because you have to get it to be like perfectly square and flat. That's like a whole technical skill on its own. and the lighting has to be like perfectly even and everything. So as long as I can possibly find a scanner that will work, that's what I'm going to stick with. Then people were like, oh, you could get one of those scanners where you like feed it in and it like scans it or whatever. And it's like, well, that doesn't really work for one with like heavy duty Bristol like I use on these pages. It's pretty heavy stuff. But also if I'm like trying to scan like something from my sketchbook or like a painting, like that would just not work. Any number of places and applications in which that just not work. That's fine if all you're doing is like documents, but it's not fine when you're doing artwork. Doesn't work. Yeah, standalone scanners are just next to impossible to find. I found a handful of like smaller format ones, like 8.5 by 11 ones when I was searching. This was a few years ago now, probably like, I don't know, 4 years ago maybe. But yeah, nothing that was the size I needed. Oh, I forgot to do his whiskers over here. Whoops. Add those whiskers. Boop, boop, boop. Whoop, whoop. I think this nib may be nearing the end of its life. It keeps on skipping on me. The feed types can also skip. Oh, yeah. Great. Yeah, just a number of reasons why that would not be ideal for what I use a scanner for. And then like you see stuff like right now, all of the drama going on with Clip Studio Paint changing to a subscription model like Adobe has been for years. And it's like, yeah, this is one of the many reasons why I don't like to do primarily digital art. Although part of why scanners have gotten so difficult to find is because so many people are doing digital art that it's kind of just assumed that if you're creating art, you're probably doing it digitally. So there's not as much demand for these larger format scanners. But all right, that's all the details on Drake. Now I need to do more. Get a little bit of motion going in there. It's like you don't want to have to ink every single blade of grass, just kind of give an impression of like, oh yeah, that looks like it's probably grass back there. Never used Clip Studio. I had used Photoshop a lot, but once it went with monthly service route, I dropped it. I draw for fun and can't afford that for a hobby. Yeah, that's kind of the problem that Clip Studio Paint was. You were able to get it. You could do a subscription model, but you could get the program for yours forever for a pretty reasonable one-time fee. And yeah, they're moving over to a strictly subscription model, and for a lot of people, like Clip Studio Paint being so affordable is how they were able to get into the hobby and were able to, just draw for fun, create comics for fun, and sometimes they were able to develop their talents into something where they did make money and they did turn it into an actual like career, more serious pursuit. And it's just, making that more expensive is just throwing another barrier in people's way, which really sucks. And I experimented with Clip Studio Paint briefly, but I'm not much of a digital artist anyway. Like I do some stuff in Photoshop, and like I do color some comics, like I'm coloring I Am the First. I do color some work if clients want it for my freelance work. But for the most part, I don't do like a lot of, I certainly don't do like any digital drawing. I don't do much in the way of digital coloring or digital painting or anything like that. And so I experimented with Clip Studio because I was so frustrated with Adobe, and I don't like the fact that I have to give Adobe money every month. I mean, yeah, it's a business expense for me, but it still just rubs me the wrong way. And like I don't like the fact that it's a subscription model. But some of the stuff that I use Photoshop for, like the ways that I do things in Photoshop, I could not find an equivalent workaround in Clip Studio Paint. And I recognize that some of that is because I'm doing things kind of in this weird esoteric way because I'm primarily a traditional artist. But it was just like, how much of my time and energy do I really want to spend trying to like square peg round hole this different program? And then thankfully it turns out that was probably for the best if they're going to go the same route, which was the big gripe I had with Photoshop in the first place. So, oh well. Donated to Krita. They're doing so well with it, and I wanted to support it. Oh, I looked at Krita, but I couldn't figure out if that was going to work for what I wanted either. I'm just going to do some lines back here. Not like a full background, because it's not super necessary to be a big background here. So we're just going to put in a few little shapes and shades to kind of keep it from being completely blank, but we're not super worried with what's going on behind Kamaria right now. It's really not that important to this panel. All right, that's all we really needed for that panel. So moving on, this panel is going to take a little bit longer. I had a copy of Photoshop I loved before they went to the subscription model too. I kept an old computer for years just so I could use it. Yeah, I think I used CS3 for way longer than I should have, or than they would have wanted me to. I liked CS3 a lot, and then eventually I wasn't able to transfer it to a new machine. And I was just like, okay, well, time to get on this Creative Cloud business. All right, these shrubs I'm going to do in brush later. I like doing the little leafy bits with a brush. So I'm just going to kind of leave an outline there for right now. And again, I'm going to add some buckles, some laces, a brooch, just little bits like that. Obviously, there's darker shading where the figures are casting a shadow, which in this case, rather than doing like a separate line of hatching, I'm just going to add more grass texture. Hey, been a long time. Hope all is well. Hey, Mike. Thanks so much for joining. Things are good here. Working on Age of Night, as always. I'm just gonna, Drake's pretty small in this one, so we're gonna keep it as just some pretty simple lines to mark out the rest of his features there. Rock here. Almost ready to print my book. Awesome. That's great news. It's a long, hard road. It is awesome that you're able to get there. So much work making your own book, especially if you're self-publishing and having to do all of the everything yourself. All right, we're gonna come up here and work on some of these trees all the way back here. Try not to get it too dense and dark, since this is back a little ways from our main focus of this panel. These random trees back here don't need to be drawing all the focus, so keep it a fairly light touch, as much as I can. Various types of trees back there. Definitely so much work, but it's a labor of love. Absolutely. I completely understand. Got some tall grass over here. Try to get some different textures on the bark in here so that all the trees don't look exactly the same, because trees come in all sorts of different textures. Bark looks all very different tree to tree. All right, so it looks like I just have a little bit of grass to fill in there. Oh, and the water. Slowly building up this little riverside marshy area. This is actually kind of visually based on a real place near me that I go by sometimes on walks, where it's just this real pretty little brook that runs down to a river, and I always walk by it and I'm like, oh, it's so pretty. I should draw that. So I finally did. You'll get a better look at it on some other pages in this sequence. All right, that's all the grass. Take a lot of pictures and apply them too. Yeah, definitely. Always taking all the pictures of everything. All right, we're going to have some areas that are just white. Mark those out so I don't lose them while I'm doing other stuff here. And it says, I take to and apply them to your book. Yeah, absolutely. Always taking lots of reference everywhere I go. Of like, ooh, that looks neat. I should use that in a book. Ooh, that looks neat. I should use that in a book. All the time. Where can we buy your comic? You can buy digital copies of it from Skirmisher Publishing's website. That's PDF. You can a PDF version of it, which is a very high quality PDF. You can get from skirmisher.com. You can get physical copies of it from Amazon. If you search by, it's easiest to search by my name. If you search for Amanda Call, it shows up a lot easier because somebody made like a paranormal romance series that's also called Age of Night. So that'll show up if you search for just Age of Night. My book will show up too eventually, but you have to scroll through a bunch of like, I don't know, vampires kissing or something. I don't know. I haven't read it. I'm not sure what's going on with it. So yeah, you can get a physical version of it from there, or you can also get like a what is it, the Kindle version, like the whatever format that is, EPUB or whatever. I've formatted all of these and I can't remember. It's also available on the One Bookshelf sites, so that's Drive-Thru RPG, Drive-Thru Fiction, and Drive-Thru Comics, if that's your jam. That's also a PDF, and through Skirmisher Publishing storefront there, because they're my online publishing partner. Or, if you happen to be at a convention that I'm at, I'm always selling my books in person there. All right, the rest of this will just be black, but that gives you the kind of different reflections toward the edge there. All right, so that's 2 tiers done. We're moving right along. It's only 8:30. Wow. We're grooving tonight. Little dots on his little nose. It's 5:30 where you are. Oh, you must be on the West Coast. I'm on the East Coast. I have to wait until after the kids are in bed for streaming. Yeah, California. Yeah. All the way clear on the other side of the United States in Maine. As far east as you can get in the United States. I swear I am. Not quite like me personally, but Maine. Points Maine are the farthest east in the United States. Also the closest state to Africa. That is true. That is true. Well, Hawaii would be the furthest west, but furthest west of the contiguous 48 for sure. All right, we are going to fill in some of this space around Drake, kind of emphasize his distressed emotional state here. So this will probably take me a minute to fill all this in because we're gonna do the squiggles. So I'm just gonna start with a few kind of all over the place to act as a guide for me. All right, there's my little radial guidelines there. Now we can start filling that in some more, which is not the most thrilling task, but I love the way it comes out in the end. Do. Oh, that's so much space. It's always like when I'm doing these little sections, I'm like, this isn't so bad. And as soon as I get to a big open section like this, I'm just like, what am I doing? Why did I do this? Why are these the decisions I made? Was this the best decision? I feel like not. I feel like maybe it was not. Ugh. just gotta keep at it, one little section at a time. That's the other thing about the guidelines that's nice, is that it does break up the space so that if you start to feel like, oh no, I am overwhelmed, this is too much space, you can just be like, okay, I just got to get through this next section. And then when you finish that section, okay, cool, next section. See, that section didn't take that long. And obviously it's going to take the same amount of time either way. It just makes it more manageable. It makes it so that you aren't like looking at the whole space and just freaking out. or getting bored and frustrated super quickly, which is absolutely what would be happening with this panel. How many liters of ink do you think you've gone through? Oh, I could not even begin to guess. Liters of ink, huh? Let's see. I usually use a 1 ounce bottle of ink. I go through probably 1 ounce sounds like it's not much, but 1 ounce of ink is a lot of ink. It's a black cat. So let's see. I usually buy the ink a 1 ounce bottle at a time. On average, I go through. I mean, some of it's for other work too, but on average, I go through like 3 or 4 bottles a year, probably. I feel like that's about right. So about 3 or 4 bottles of ink per year is 4 ounces. And I've been doing this for 15 years. So 4 times 15 would be 60 ounces. I don't know what that converts to in liters. 60 ounces is so much ink. So much. It's ridiculous. Truly ridiculous. Because, like, yeah, an ounce bottle is this. This is a 1 ounce bottle. It's a fair amount of ink. So whatever 60 ounces translates to in liters, I don't know. That would be my guess. I haven't been keeping that meticulous of records. I do like when people do stuff like that, though. Like I find it pretty neat when someone in their graphic novel like lists the amount of supplies they burned through. I find that pretty cool. If I do another book sometime, because obviously I didn't start doing that when I started working on I Am the First either. I'll have to keep track of that because I think that's pretty neat. Kind of neat to have a little like vital stats page. I have noticed it's a thing that some people do of like, I used this type of pencil and this type of ink and this type of paper and this type of brush, and I used X number of ounces of ink and X number of pencils and that sort of thing. And I think it's it doesn't like mean anything, but it's just kind of neat. It's just neat trivia. I will definitely have to do that next time I start a book. We're past the halfway mark on I Am the First, so eventually I'll start another book. I'll have to actually keep supplies tallied separately, because if I'm working on Age of Night at the same time, it's hard to keep track. How are we on time? We're at 8:45. Okay, so we've got about 15 minutes left in the stream. I usually keep this to about an hour because at the end of an hour, I need to get up and stretch and go get some water, and you should do the same. It would be good for you. Move, stretch, hydrate. Important things. Filling in that space. It's okay. I'll get there eventually. Slowly fill in this space with scribbles. I will eventually have this space filled with scribbles. Yay! Look, yay! It's finally filled in. Still have to do all this, but that spot's finally filled in. Yay! Super interested in all the ways you're headed in this story, but it's so split. How do you decide which path to focus on or which characters to highlight? So I do have a particular like I know where everything is going, and each character has like different points at which they come to the fore, depending on what they're personally dealing with and how it interacts with the greater plot. So, like Fell has gone through a lot of stuff, but his stuff has mostly calmed down at this point because all of the stuff that he was going through is kind of resolved for the most part. There's a little bit of like emotional, interpersonal stuff that's not fully resolved, but that's also kind of like stuff he just needs to kind of deal with at this point. Um, and like Kamaria went through a lot of stuff that brought her back to the main cast, but is also like kind of on a low simmer right now. And then there's another group of characters, obviously, right now. Right now, Zeke and Baltazar are off doing something different because they've been like kind of an antagonistic force for the story, so they're kind of moving in an opposing direction. And obviously, at the end, everything is going to kind of come together and be resolved in its own way. Stuff that hasn't already been. And it's kind of thing is that when you have like an ensemble cast, like everybody has their own little arcs of like, all right, when is this character going to have to deal with stuff, and how is it going to be relevant to what's going on in the plot? Obviously, Drake has the most stuff going on because he's the main character, and his final resolution for everything is going to be like the end of the story. And everybody else, it's really just a matter of like, you know, at what point does focusing on them help to drive where the rest of the story needs to go forward, or the other way around. Like, if I focus on this character for a while, where do we go? What happens then? And as far as like the layout of each, or the format and pacing of each individual chapter, I do try to make sure that I never go too long without checking back in with a group of characters. So I will very often like not check in with Zeke and Baltazar for like an entire chapter because they're not the main characters, they're kind of a side group. But I try not to ever have it go for like more than one or two chapters because it's like, no, I haven't forgot about them, they're still here. And you know, bopping back and checking on other groups of characters is a good way to just like break up between scenes and help to determine that there's time that has passed between scenes that other groups are in. So if you have like a scene that happens one day with the main cast of characters, and then we don't want to actually like have them have a scene until the following day, cutting to one of these other groups of characters and what they're doing helps to establish that space and have it be like, oh well, now I can accept that it's the next day. Like, it makes sense to me that it's the next day because we've now spent time reading away from them. If that makes sense. I'm probably rambling slightly, but I'm trying to make myself coherent here. I'm almost done with this panel. Yay! Yay! panels finally get the coherent story timelines. Yeah. I have a master plan. Panels where people go to sleep or wake up. Yeah. Generally, I don't do a lot of that if I can. I don't do a lot of that going to sleep and waking up if I can help it. Sometimes that happens because it's a good way to like bookend a scene, or everybody has to go to sleep for Drake to interact with avatars because they don't come out until nighttime. All right, we're in the last 10 minutes, so I'm just gonna work on this panel and finish telling everybody about the things. In case you came in late, I'm Amanda Call. This is a page from my webcomic, Age of Night, which you can read at ageofnight.com. That's EOFNIGHT.com. Updates every Wednesday with a new page, and you can read the whole thing online for free. However, if you would like to help support me financially, you can do so over at Patreon. You can become a patron and get all of your Age of Night pages a week early, as well as other behind-the-scenes stuff, bonus content, free comics, all sorts of good things. And that's at patreon.com/ageofnight, spelled the same way as the comic. You can also buy copies of my comic on skirmisher.com, or on amazon.com, or on DriveThruRPG, DriveThruFiction, and DriveThruComics. You got options, depending on the format you like. If you like watching me work on art, comics specifically, be sure to like this video, subscribe to my channel. I do these live streams every Tuesday evening at 8 p.m. Eastern, unless something comes up, but most Tuesday evenings at 8 p.m. Eastern. Yeah, that's the place to do it, here on my YouTube. But if you subscribe, then YouTube will let you know when I'm going live, just in case you forget. You can follow me on other socials. I'm on Twitter at Age of Night. I'm on Instagram and TikTok at Amanda Call Art. No spaces or anything, just my name followed by the word art, all smooshed together. If you like to do Facebook, Age of Night has a Facebook page. Again, options. We're just about done with this one. All right, hooray! So that is all of the background inking for this page. We started with no inking on this page, and now we've gotten all the backgrounds done. That was a pretty productive little stream there. So next week we will come back and we will do brush inking on the figures, and hopefully that'll finish it up. So thanks everybody for coming and hanging out with me. I will see you next time. Bye.